an incredible gathering here today. I agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu that a nuclear Iran poses an existential threat to the nation of Israel. And let me be clear, when he says existential, he doesn't mean a bunch of Frenchmen in black berets chain smoking.
Next, we are joined by someone who has helped put this event together and has been active in the area of foreign policy far longer than I have, the president of Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney.
Thank you, and thank you to Jenny Beth and to the Tea Party team and to all of you representing Americans across this country by the millions who do not want this deal. I want to just share with you an insight. There was a courageous Democrat in the United States Senate by the name of Bob Menendez. When he announced that he would not support this deal, despite the pressure, despite the coercion, despite the prosecution, he said, "My name will not be on this bomb." We have here examples of two senators whose names will be on the bomb: Bill Nelson, Barbara Boxer. But the question is, ladies and gentlemen, if the Republican leaders of the United States Senate and House do not stop this deal, which they can, their names will be on the bombs. Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, that must not happen.
This Iranian nuclear deal is catastrophic.
Never, ever, ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran.
We, the American people, reject the cowardice and surrender by our government to the genocidal terror regime in Iran.
You don't reward terrorism. You kill it.
Well, they said God was dead back when I was in college, but he wasn't. They lied. Then they said the Tea Party was dead. Not true. And then they said, well, Cruz, he's anti-establishment. Trump, he's anti-establishment. Levin, he's anti-establishment. Sarah Palin, she's anti-establishment. Hey, here's a news flash before I get down on the riverbank and go back to where I came from. I was anti when anti wasn't even cool. I don't do deals with individuals, whoever they are, when they're hollering at the top of their lungs when I walk out of the place where we're doing the deal, and they're saying, "Death to you, we're going to kill you." That's the last bunch you want to have nuclear weapons.
All right, Tom Trento here, wrapping up on September 9th, 2015, an amazing event in front of the United States Capitol out at the mall with two of the organizers, Center for Security Policy. We have the CEO here, but Chris, what do you think? How'd the day go?
It's fantastic. I think not only did it appear to be a great event with people making powerful speeches that really socked in the gut those who were watching them, but I think that we had an impact. I think that we can demonstrate that the fact that the House was unable to muster the votes that the Republicans needed in order to get this thing through really shows that this had an impact. So I'm really excited about it.
I was watching the faces of the crowd as they were speaking, Frank, and people were passionately involved in what was being said.
We live in a world that is suffering under the delusion of peace and prosperity. We are being told that the world is safer. We're being told that the world economy is stable and that Islamic killers are men of peace.
What's your feel for where America is right now on these issues?
Well, that's my most important takeaway, is that I think these were people here representing millions across the country who feel, as they obviously do, that what's being done is a travesty, that it is an assault on both our security and on our constitutional republic. And the way that the Republicans have structured this, that would basically enable them to seem to oppose it, but allow it to go through, has been shown to be unacceptable. Unacceptable to not just the crowd here, but to the people that they're speaking for, by their presence and by their voices, as were all of these incredible speakers, the legislators, the presidential candidates, past and present, the military leaders, the senior ones and some of the more junior ones. These are people who spoke to this crowd, but they spoke for all of us.
You are sending a message across the world that you are going to stand for sanity and not insanity. It is very clear, it is patently obvious, and it is simple what the legislative solution in the short term needs to be. It is accept the victory that has already been given. You see, the federal law states that if Barack Obama failed to give every part of the Iranian agreement to this Congress, and the language actually says including side deals, if he failed to do that by July 19th, well then the sanctions stand. Case closed. We won. What we need are Republican leaders who will not be complicit with a lawless president. And we need them to go to the microphone today and tell the American people that President Barack Obama failed to deliver in the legislative short term, and therefore the sanctions stand. End of story. Let's move on to the next event.
What makes this deal so ominous is the infusion of money into their part of the jihad. What makes this deal so dangerous is that it is an emboldening that unquestionably is not only going to be picked up on by the mullahs in Tehran, but by other elements of the jihad, and for that matter, other enemies of this country who aren't part of the jihad, but are willing to make common cause with it if it takes us down.
Now, Ted and everybody else have gone through all of the details, and we can talk about the 24 days, which is ridiculous. We can talk about the $150 billion, which, by the way, they get, even if the deal isn't approved, they get it just for going to the table. We can talk about the fact that we have 4 wonderful people over there, and frankly, they're never going to come back with this group. And I will say this, if I win the presidency, I guarantee you that those 4 prisoners are back in our country before I ever take office. I guarantee that.
So our challenge, I think, is to translate whatever comes out of the congressional deliberations on this deal, whatever the president decides to do, and you can bet that it's probably going to be illegal. What is going to matter is that this campaign and the larger public revulsion for the policies and the approach to defense and national security, more broadly defined, of this president is going to translate into, I'm hoping, not only the election of a commander-in-chief with a very different approach, but a mandate from the American people to adopt that approach.
If Senate Democrats decide that party loyalty matters more than national security, and if Republican leadership decides that a show vote is more important than stopping this deal, then the single most important issue in 2016 will be stopping Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And any commander-in-chief worthy of defending this nation should be prepared to stand up on January 20th, 2017 and rip to shreds this catastrophic deal. Any commander-in-chief worthy of defending this nation should be prepared in January 2017 to look in the eyes of the Ayatollah Khamenei and say, under no circumstances does Iran, led by a theocratic Ayatollah who chants death to America, under no circumstances will Iran be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. And if Iran will not stop its nuclear program, we will stop it for you.
And if that's what we can contribute to in the months ahead, not in a partisan way, but in a policy way, that will have been, I think, in a way, maybe the senator's finest hour.
Frank, people are going to be watching this and they're going to want to do something. What can they do?
Most immediately, their voices must be heard on Capitol Hill. We desperately need the kind of messages that were so well expressed in this setting to be amplified many, many times over.
Just so you know, you have already made a difference. When we started today, the word was, here's what was going to happen this week. We were going to have a vote on the rule at 1:30 today that would bring the bill before the House on 9/11 that would allow the House to say we disapprove of the Iranian deal, which is a treaty. And then we'd wait for the Senate, and the Senate would cast their votes, and they would not get 2/3. And then Republicans would be able to turn to the public and say, hey, we tried so hard, but we couldn't get the 2/3 in the Senate, so the Iran deal goes through. Gee, we tried. Well, guess what? You figured out the sham. And the good news is, the vote that was scheduled at 1:30 to run through the scenario I laid out has been stopped. Congratulations, you are making a difference.
Well, what are the Republicans? The Republicans control that building behind us right now. You see that scaffolding up there? They should take some of that and use it on their damn spines.